By Chad Pollitt, a marketing leader, co-founder, 2 times professor, 12 times author, 4 times board member, and more than 100 times global keynote speaker. Chad, how are you doing today?
Excellent, Joe. I'm very happy to be here, and I would love to come out and visit you guys sometime.
Oh, excellent stuff. Yeah, we were just chatting in the preamble beforehand about, the fact that I'm over in the UK, you're over in the US, and how much we'd like to sort of just, switch and travel. But yeah, absolutely. Well, Chad, I'm very pleased that you're here to join us to talk about B2B automation processes. So my first question to you in that case is, in your opinion, to your mind, which is the biggest problem solved by automation processes when we're talking about B2B marketing?
Yeah. So before I answer your question, Joe, uh, I really like to share my philosophy and in terms of marketing in general, and then get more specific about automation. Okay,
Okay.
we're really in a new space today. With the advent of AI and what that's really bringing to the table. But essentially, no matter how complicated things get, and I take this from my days in the military. I served over 10 years in the military as a commander and battalion battle captain. In fact, I actually went to Iraq for a year. But one of the things I took away from that experience was what we call the KISS principle. KISS. So it stands for keep it simple, stupid. The the simpler you can keep things, the easier it is to wrap your head around it, to implement it, and to execute it. And then to go ahead and mentor, teach, and train other people to either help or to take over whatever function that you're doing within marketing. So that's a very important principle. And I'm going to approach all these questions with the KISS principle. As far as automation goes in marketing today, there's really two versions of it. And again, keep it simple, stupid. The first version is established by humans. So I'm sure you and your audience is familiar with the idea of if this, then that, right?
Uh-huh.
If statements. Automation throughout my career, which I started using in about 2010, was the first time I started using some type of automation. It was all about if this, then that. And you would manually build those statements out within workflows to accomplish certain tasks. And it was very human led. Now, today, we have a new type of automation, and that's AI driven automation, where the AI is smart enough to figure out what if this, then that statements it needs to come up with, and it can do it in real time. Now, that being said, anyone watching this that have used a lot of the newer AI technologies knows it's not quite ready for prime time. There's some are better than others, uh, but it's pointed in the direction of mostly hands off for people like you and me. We're not there yet. So when I talk about automation, I will talk about both the AI side of automation as well as the human side. If this, then that.
Okay, well, just extrapolating that slightly, then let's talk about outreach, and specifically, I wanted to ask you about LinkedIn outreach because, I mean, what would you say that given the terms and conditions of using LinkedIn, what are the potential risks and rewards of using automation tools for LinkedIn outreach?
So based on what I've read, I have not done LinkedIn outreach myself from an automated perspective. But based on what I've read, the terms and conditions are they're a stickler on certain things. Um, Authenticity is a big deal to LinkedIn, and they want to avoid the view of inauthenticity with its users. Another thing that LinkedIn is a stickler about is really um, scraping their website for data and privacy issues. In fact, there's some laws in my country in certain states where you can actually get in trouble from a legal perspective if you do too much data privacy mining and things like that. So that's a challenge when using some of these software packages for automation. Okay, there's a lot of them out there. Some of them toe the line. Some of them are better than others, we'll say.
Mm.
But
It's a
also,
very diplomatic way of putting it, I think, Chad. I think I understand what you're saying, but
yeah. But I mean, when it comes to authenticity, because that's one of the first things that I read when it comes to their terms and conditions, that's important to them. I know from I'm a power LinkedIn user myself, and I get so many automated messages. I'm inundated with them. And I can tell they're not authentic for the most part. The
yeah,
ones that are authentic, like maybe they mentioned some book I wrote or something that I did. If you do that, I'm going to answer you back. Other than that, I'm ignoring whatever you send me in LinkedIn automation. It's just, I don't have enough hours in the day to react to all of them. Now, like I said, I'm a power user, so I'm a little bit different. Most people out there aren't going to have that issue. You know, if you've got maybe 100 connections, you probably won't get spammed like I do. So I'm kind of jaded in this conversation,
sure.
but ultimately, what automation allows you to do is hyper personalize at scale, and it really allows you to create tailored campaigns for individuals. And one of um, my other principles when it comes to marketing, and I talked about this clear back in, I think, 2012. I did a speech, and the takeaway from the speech was um, get as close to one-to-one marketing as humanly possible with scale. If you can accomplish that, you're doing a good thing and you'll be successful.
I think that's actually a really interesting take because I was looking at something the other day and I saw a post from Christina Garnett, who has been a previous guest on Lead Friends webinars, and she'd made the point that actually what was happening on LinkedIn, which I think was to the detriment of of marketing and outreach and that sort of thing, is that this commodification of authenticity is actually breeding that false authenticity. It's almost an inauthenticity in and of itself, if you see what I'm saying. So there's a really interesting take about that, like the fact that the algorithms are picking up on authenticity being this thing we're trying to achieve, but actually in doing so, it commodifies it, and then suddenly it doesn't mean anything again. But that's a really interesting take on LinkedIn there, Chad. But then I think should we move on to let's stay with outreach, but go to sort of our email marketing sequences. How do you determine the segmentation of your audience for automated email sequences?
So this is what I believe what you're talking about is what HubSpot considers. They call it marketing automation, just in general, and it's basically a chain of emails that guides the user down the buyer's journey, as opposed to you purchase a product online and you get a receipt email back. Okay, they are kind of automated, but there's a big difference in terms of strategy and what you're trying to accomplish. This can get really complicated, and I'm going to try to keep it very simple. Uh, to be successful, the first thing you need to do is identify and define your buyer's journey. And again, um, in the vein of keep it simple, stupid, I create 3 layers to all of my buyers' journeys. Okay, and we'll just call them top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. Now, if you want to get into some really advanced marketing with retention strategies and things like that, then you'd have more layers, but we won't talk about those today. Now, ultimately, businesses are in the business to solve people's problems. Period, point blank. That's why they exist. That's why they do what they do. I don't care if you're a nonprofit you're solving someone's problem, whether it's the person receiving the donation, or whether it's making the person giving the donation, making them feel good or giving them a tax benefit or something like that. Or whether you're a B2B company and say, like your company, for instance, you help drive leads. So if I have a problem and I need leads, you solve that problem. Okay. So with with that being said, as far as businesses are in business to solve problems, the buyer's journey needs to align with the problems that you solve and that those prospects has. Okay. Now, once somebody interacts at one part of the funnel and you can identify them, maybe you even create a lead scoring system where maybe they have to interact at that level of your funnel, and the level is defined by the content that they consume. Okay. So maybe they need a lead score of 50 to move on to the next level in the buyer's journey. And maybe each blog post they read is worth 5 points, and each webinar they watch is worth 10 points. And well, once they get to a certain level, then you start feeding them different types of middle of the funnel content. Like maybe, for example, you would give them a case study of how somebody was successful with your product or your service. And then again, you build up, say the next level is 50 more points. So at that level, then they move to the next level of the funnel. And maybe the content you give them there are product spec sheets, catalogs, how to install some software, things like that. But that's a very basic approach to marketing automation and email drip campaigns, some people call them. But ultimately, that's more of humans establishing if this, then that. With the new AI world that we're in now and getting deeper into, AI is going to be able to figure that out on its own through and utilize hyper personalization.
Well, I mean, just as you've quite helpfully pointed something out to us, Chad, that that is exactly what Lead Forensics does. Lead Forensics does help you find leads and shows you the anonymous visitors to your B2B website. So if you would like to book a demo or a free trial, click on the link that's on screen now, and we will get that sorted. We'll get in touch and sort that out for you. So that's actually quite a handy lead in there, Chad, you've given me to just see that. It was slick, wasn't it? It was a very slick segue for that one. So just to stick to the theme of lead scoring and prioritization, and how has automated lead scoring impacted your sales team's efficiency and conversion rates?
Yeah, again, to keep it with the KISS principle, there's a song from the late 80s, I believe, called, what's the name of the group? I can't remember. It's an R&B group.
I mean, feel free to sing for us, Chad. That's absolutely no problem.
No, I'm not going to do that. The title is "Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls."
Oh yeah, just listen to the. I can't remember what.
Yeah, Lisa Left Eye Lopez was in the group, and I can't remember the name of the group.
It's not TLC, is it?
Yes, it's TLC.
Yes,
Thank
TLC.
You.
Oh,
Thank
somewhere my wife is very, very proud of me for getting that because she loves that.
But you don't want sales chasing waterfalls. You really don't. When you can utilize lead scoring, and if it's a good system and it really aligns with your buyer's journey, they can then turn around and focus on the leads that are more likely to turn into business. And that's where I want my salespeople. It starts with the SDRs, the inside sales folks. They nurture that lead and get it to the bottom of the funnel as best as possible, and then move that on to the outside salesperson, the sales executive, to try to close that deal. If they're chasing waterfalls and they don't have that in place, any old lead that looks qualified, they could waste an entire day bugging a bunch of people that are interested. And where the lead scoring comes in is it validates whether or not you should invest the time, energy, and effort at that moment to communicate with them.
100%. And if I might again recommend a tool that would be very good at that sort of thing, Lead Forensics. Once more, just let us know in the comments. Just put in the comments if you'd like to receive a bit of communication about receiving a demo. Just type yes into the chat there, and we'll get somebody to be in touch with you. So then we've talked a little bit about AI and bits and pieces there, Chad. But I wonder if there's any application when it comes to content personalization, shall we say? I mean, we've gone through the segmentation of email marketing, but what strategies do you employ to personalize content effectively?
Yeah, so I don't think AI is really up to the task that I think it's going to be at. But essentially, now, let me see. Oh, yeah, dynamic tags. Right now, the way content personalization works, for the most part, it's a human, if this, then that sort of scenario. So when you're dealing with dynamic tags, whether it's an email or even blog posts, say you can personalize blog posts with today's technology, but you basically put in a plug. It's maybe a little at symbol and a particular word like name with another at symbol next to it within your content. And then when somebody in that's already in your CRM goes and visits that content, whether it be via email or be say a blog or a regular page on your website or even an app, it's going to pull in whatever that plug represents for the CRM. So it's an if this, then that scenario. And that's mostly where we're at with content personalization. Um, you can also do it with not just people's names, but with like the companies they work for. Um, Maybe say you have a special relationship and you're a partner with SAP. And anybody from SAP that goes to your website, you could create a page that's personalized towards anybody that works for SAP. I mean, that's pretty personalized as far as content goes. But ultimately, what I see happening is I go to your website recognizes who I am, it goes out on the web, finds out everything about me, and creates content that's so personalized to me. It knows that I've written 12 books. It knows that I've worked for this company for X amount of years. It knows these things already and creates and writes custom content for me to achieve your goals. That's I think where we're headed. We're not even close to being there yet.
So then a slightly different attack then, Chad. So in terms of, because we've seen with the advent of AI, as you mentioned, I think we've seen an uprise in the use of chatbots for customer service. So what, to your mind, are the main advantages, but also the potential drawbacks of using chatbots for customer service?
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up, Joe. I mean, ultimately, the greatest possibility for chatbots is that you don't have to man a particular chat 24/7. Excuse me. That's nice because that's a salary you don't have to pay, right? But the problem is this: because AI is not where it's going to be, it's in its infancy still. Again, businesses are in the business to solve people's problems. That's why people do business with businesses to solve their problems. If I'm using a chatbot, I've got a problem and I'm expecting that business to solve that problem. So if that business cannot solve that problem with their chatbot, it's going to frustrate me. And what I'm going to end up doing, I know because I've done this 100 times, is keep changing my query, keep changing my query, keep changing my query. And I'm still not getting the answer I want. And it's frustrating. And it actually gets me upset at the brand, which is something you do not want to do as a brand. It's easier to keep a customer than it is to get a new one. So it's really a double-edged sword. You have to, it's a balance. And you better make sure that some of those common questions can be answered and answered easily because I mean, I forget what the number is, but Google, X amount of queries they get per day are brand new that have never been queried before in Google. Well, your chatbot's going to get the same thing. you're going to get queries in your chatbot for the first time every day, depending on how much it's used. So your AI has to be able to parse that and figure out what they're actually saying. So it's a double-edged sword.
I think just to throw up an example of a company who does chatbot extraordinarily well. I mentioned this on a webinar very recently, actually. But so the platform that we use for all of our webinar bits and pieces is Webinar Geek, and I think I said this. I think it was only last week, but I cannot speak more highly of their customer service, but particularly their chat function, because and I'm not entirely sure what their process is on getting it to work, but I've had some pretty niche things that I just wanted ironed out. So I just get straight on to them, hey, is anyone there to help me with this? And immediately they come back with a detailed response. But they absolutely, there must be some form of of automation or using AI for that customer service, because they're a
It's quick.
decent sized company. It's so quick, but then the responses are so, like, I wonder if they almost use a triaging service just to be like, right, well, here's what this
Mm.
basically the problem is. So we'll directly connect you with somebody. But if it's not, it's very, very convincingly human, should we say? um,
That's
so
good.
then, in in terms of, if we're thinking about reporting and analytics, um, how has automation in reporting and analytics enabled more data-driven decision making? I always get confused with that phrase. Data-driven decision making in your marketing strategy.
So I've been in this business for over 20 years, and I didn't start using analytics till 2006. And for most of my career, I would spend hours and hours a week just staring at analytics. And when you do that, you have to figure out some of the trends and how those trends interact with each other to make decisions. And it's very labor intensive and takes a lot of time to do. Well, when I mentioned AI before and I talked about scale, AI can do things that a whole team of data scientists can't do in a very fast amount of time. So, as long as you train the AI to know what you want ultimately, which is to grow sales and revenue and maintain clients and things like that, AI in its perfect form, which again, I don't think we're quite there yet, but it should be able to notice trends that are so micro that even if we stared at these analytics for hours on end, we'd never notice them. And not just individual trends, but how those trends interact with each other. And um, the perfect example of this is paid media. So AI and paid media is fairly advanced, but um, the way it works is this. First of all, most people are familiar with pay per click, pay per thousand impressions, pay ways of paying for paid media that way, right? Well, the big one now, thanks to AI, is pay per engagement. Now, engagement can be several different things. Engagement can be how much time does somebody spend on your content. So, say an engagement is somebody spends 1 minute or more on your content. Well, that's much more valuable than somebody that gets one view on your content and clicks off immediately, right? So, imagine if you can use AI, create 10 headlines, give it 5 different creatives to go with that ad unit, give it uh, 8 different demographics, and then add some geographical things on there, and then give it a budget and hit go and say, I want X amount of engagements with this ad. And then what the AI will do it will create different permutations and test them against each other constantly, constantly, constantly. And because of those micro trends, it's going to be able to identify those because we're talking big data. You can have over 1 million permutations with just a few things that you add into it before you do the campaign. But with all those permutations and being able to see all those little micro trends and optimizing towards those trends in real time, you're going to get the best bang for your buck, and you're literally going to deliver the best content to the right person at the right time. And that's what AI allows marketers like you and I to do. Versus if we were to do that by hand, oh my goodness, it would take a team of data scientists months and months to come up with what AI can come up with in a day.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, Chad, we are slightly running short of time here, but you've offered up some really valuable thoughts and insights to our audience. So I am going to wrap up our conversation, but just before I come back to you with one final question, this webinar is brought to you, as previously mentioned, by Lead Forensics, which is software that identifies anonymous visitors to your B2B website, showing you their customer journey, what links they've clicked on, pages they've looked at, so you can tailor your approach and better close those deals. And in terms of marketing automation, there's a few points that we've already mentioned that Lead Forensics can help you with, particularly with reporting and analytics and that sort of thing, and knowing exactly where you want to send your content to and who to send it to. Lead Forensics can help you with that by giving you a better understanding of who is looking at your website. So again, to book your obligation-free trial or to sit a demo with us, just let me know on the poll, which is on screen right now, and I'll leave this up as we come to the end of the conversation with Chad here. If you could also fill out the webinar feedback survey too, I would love to know what you loved about this week's webinar. Chad, I am going to come back to you now with one final thought. You provide us again with loads of insights on automation processes. So if I could just ask you for one top tip for everybody watching this today to go away with, if they remember nothing else, Chad, what is the one thing they remember from this conversation?
I'll go back to what I said in the very beginning. Keep it simple, stupid. Do not overcomplicate marketing. Yes, there's a ton of technology. There's a ton of things you can do and implement and plug into each other, and keep it simple. Ultimately, at the end of the day, our job is to solve problems for people and to drive revenue. You mentioned that I was an author previously. I wanted to let your audience know that at chadpolitt.com, that's Chad, POLLITT.com, all my books are available for free download. You don't even have to fill out a form. All you got to do is click on it and you have access to all my books. And the one I wanted to mention specifically is all about analytics and artificial intelligence. So all of you are invited and welcome. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Chad Pollitt.
Fantastic stuff. Well, you heard it from the man himself. Go and have a look at Chad's books. Oh, I'm sure it was 11 times author, aren't you, Chad? Is that
12.
Or was it 12? 12 times author. Fantastic stuff. Again, Chad, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. Do remember to keep an eye on Lead Forensics socials for news of our upcoming webinars, and we will see you again very, very soon. But for now, Chad, thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe. Have a great one.